name is Mara DeCola. I'm the Executive Director for Cooperating Raleigh Colleges, and we are so excited to have you with us today for one of our professional development mini-series events. Today you're with us for Eating Well on a Budget, Working Professionals Edition. We are excited to have you. I think that if you are not already eating lunch, you will absolutely be hungry for it after this workshop. CRC is excited to offer our webinar series each semester. We will have an additional workshop happening later on this spring, and more details will come in our next newsletter. So we're excited to have you all back with us and hope that you can join us for some additional professional development and personal development experiences. Today, we are welcoming Wendy Pedraza. Our speaker is the owner of Wendy Pedraza Nutrition Consulting. She is a registered dietitian and mindful eating nutritionist. She's a graduate of both NC State and Meredith College, so a CRC representative if we know one. Wendy owns telehealth-based nutrition consulting and is a licensed to provide nutrition consulting services in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and Mississippi. Wendy and her husband Mike and daughters live here in Raleigh, and Wendy enjoys running, hiking, and cooking. Today, Wendy will provide an overview of what eating in a nourishing way really means. And spoiler alert, it does not mean cutting out all treats, as well as offer ideas for weeknight meals that don't break the bank. And she's going to wrap up with a cooking demonstration that involves very little cooking, because who has time for that? And so without further ado, I am going to introduce Wendy Pedraza.
Thank you so much, Mara. Thank you, CRC. So great to see that participant number keep going up. I'm so excited that everyone is here. It's great to be with you all again. I've had the opportunity to speak to you all before. I just think this is a wonderful organization. So we will get started. Mara did an awesome job of kind of going through my bio. So here's my beautiful family that I'm very proud of, my two kiddos and my husband. I am a NC State grad, a Meredith grad. I also used to work at William Peace University. So lots of connections to the various colleges involved in CRC. I also took some classes at Wake Tech, so huge affinity for Wake Tech. So that's just a little bit about me. The only other thing I wanted to point out is for those of you involved in the state health plan, just in case you weren't aware, you do have nutrition counseling covered under your state health plan completely free of charge. It's covered. You're already paying for it in your premiums each month. You have unlimited visits per year with a nutritionist, no copay, no requirement of meeting your deductible. So whether it's with me or someone else, if you are wanting a little bit more support, if you are trying to work on chronic disease prevention or management, if you have gastrointestinal issues, our dietitian really can help in that space. And you do have that benefit involved with your state health plan. And a lot of people don't know that. So I just wanted to mention that out of the gate. I am a provider with the state health plan, but there's a ton of nutritionists who are. And my practice is all telehealth. So this format is very comfortable for me. I'm coming to you today from my kitchen because I will be doing a quick cooking demonstration at the very end. But let's get started with the content first. So what are we going to talk about today? Before we talk about eating well on a budget, I just thought it might be helpful to sort of ground us in what is eating well. There's so much information out there. There's some good information, there's some not so good information. And I really see my role as a dietitian as kind of the curator of the noise. Let me be the one to filter that for you and give you what I believe is the sound, evidence-based, well-researched take on how to eat well. So we'll kind of talk about what is eating well, and then we'll jump into some budget-friendly, time-friendly tips to get dinner on the table after a long day. And then I'll move into the quick cooking demonstration. But before we jump in, I just want to hold space for the fact that inflation is real, y'all. And so if you are astounded when they hit the total button at the grocery store like I am, you are not alone. I was thinking that's probably one of the reasons why this was a popular topic and why Mara reached out to me. I used to be able to feed my family of four for between $200 and $250 a week. Granted, we do eat most of our meals at home, so that's 7 days, 3 meals a day, four times 4 people, which is a lot. So 200, I was like really doing well. 250 was a little more normal. I can't get out of there for less than 350 now. And so I just feel like I know inflation is improving in some other areas. This is not my area of expertise, but I just still feel it very much at the grocery store. And so if you are feeling it too, don't beat yourself up. You're not doing anything wrong. It's that everything is more expensive. And this has implications for eating takeout and going out to dinner as well, because their food is more expensive. So just eating is expensive right now. So I hope I have some tips that will kind of ease that burden a little bit, but just know that that is certainly one of the things that I'm seeing is that my grocery bill, I just cannot get it down no matter how hard I try. But some of these tips have helped me. Okay, so what we're going to talk about with regard to eating well is eating when you're hungry, eating foods that you enjoy, eating protein, carbs, and fat at every meal, and recognizing that eating is not the only determinant of health. So if you're at a presentation on eating well, then I assume that you also want to feel good, have good blood work, have energy, things like that, live a very long time. And food is not the only component of that, even though that's my training and expertise. I very strongly believe that there's multiple components to health, and we'll talk about what those are. And if you meet with a dietitian, hopefully all of that would be covered and you would talk about that. So eating when you're hungry. So I am a child of the 90s, and I very much grew up in diet culture. And I was told that a diet or some new fad knew when I was hungry better than I did. And this is just not true. So if this is you, I really encourage you to start honoring those internal cues. If your stomach is growling, that means that your blood sugar is starting to go down. That means that your cognition is going to start to suffer. It means that your focus is going to start to suffer, your energy. Our body is amazing, and it is talking to us all the time, and it knows better than some external source. So if your stomach is starting to growl, that's a time for you to reach for snack, or maybe go ahead and have your lunch. When we ignore those cues, it causes our metabolism to slow down. So a lot of people who have been chronic dieters their entire life have actually ruined their metabolism through no fault of their own, because of course these are outside messages that people are getting, like this is going to help you if you greatly restrict your calories or don't listen to your growling stomach, but it actually causes your metabolism to slow down. So your body's kind of in starvation mode, and it doesn't burn things as effectively. So this can lead to unwanted weight gain or your body to store fat. You also, when you eat more regularly, you regulate your blood sugar. So as I said, if your stomach's starting to growl, that means your blood sugar is going down. And this is a concern whether you are someone who is pre-diabetic, diabetic, or your blood sugar looks perfect. We don't want our blood sugar to plummet. This has implications for everything from hormones to energy to your ability to focus during a meeting. So we want to keep our blood sugar regulated throughout the day. And the way to do that, A, is to eat when you're hungry, but really to make sure you're eating between 3 and 5 hours. Some people need a morning and an afternoon snack. Some people just need breakfast, lunch, and dinner. There's no perfect prescription for what's right. And it might actually change day to day for you. So it could be you had an early dinner the day before, you had a really stressful day, dinner was kind of small, you didn't sleep well. All that is going to make you hungrier the next day than you normally are. So at 10 o'clock, you're not usually a snack person, and you're like, I shouldn't be hungry right now. You actually can have every right to be hungry. Your body's talking to you. So grab a snack. But I also want to mention eating out of necessity. So I'm very much a believer in intuitive mindful eating, eating when you're hungry, stopping when you start to feel full. But sometimes you might be going into a really long meeting. You might not currently be hungry, but the meeting is going to run through lunch. And so you go ahead and eat something. Or you're going for a big workout after work. You've had lunch, you're not actually super hungry at 3 or 4 o'clock, but you expect your body to perform at a certain level after work. And so having a small snack at that point to fuel your workout. So just considering that there's times where your body might not talk to you, but you just realistically know that it's time to eat. So moving on to foods you enjoy, as Mara said, I'm not the type of dietitian that is going to tell you that there are certain foods that go on the never list or the naughty list. Everything is allowed. It really is. It's just about figuring out how much you can enjoy of those foods and not having them necessarily be the star of the meal if it's something that doesn't make you feel great. That's the sustainable path. I would guess there's a lot of people on this call who have been on restrictive diets in the past that have said the diets have told you never have this, never have this, never have this. And eventually that diet fails you. And I use that word or that phrasing very intentionally. The diet failed you. You did not fail on the diet. These things are designed to make us fail so that then we have to buy more of these products. The only sustainable way is for you to figure out, hey, I love these certain foods. I want to have them in my life. I'm allowed to have them in my life, but maybe I don't have them every single day because they make me feel bloated or they're affecting my blood work. Um, there's a pecan sticky bun at Yellow Dog Bakery over near those of you who work at William Peace, if you know what I'm talking about. It will always be in my life. Now, I can't have it every day because it makes me feel bloated. It doesn't really fuel my day very well, but I'm going to prioritize going by there every couple of weeks and having it with a nice cup of coffee. So just figuring out how you can incorporate things in your life. And also thinking of nutrition in terms of what you can add versus what you have to take away. So if you're someone who loves pizza or burgers or tacos, rather than thinking, well, this is not something that I can have on a regular basis, those things all are great sources of protein, and they're also wonderful vehicles for adding additional vegetables. So maybe your pizza has veggies and meat on top, or maybe you have a side salad with your pizza, or maybe you put some mushrooms and shredded cabbage on top of that burger. So thinking about how you can add things that are more nutritious to your meal rather than saying, I can never have a burger. And also, in that vein, rethinking what you consider healthy. There's plenty of people who would say things like burgers and pizza and tacos are kind of off the list if I'm going to be on my plan. If those are things that you love, or even more importantly, if any of those are cultural foods for you or your cultural foods specifically, whatever they might be, you need to feel like you can still incorporate those in your life. It might, again, just be a matter of recomprising the plate so that you've added some nourishing things and balancing your meal a little bit. And that to me is the sustainable way. And it also improves quality of life. It makes me so sad when I have clients come to me and say, I felt like I couldn't go out for chips and queso with my girlfriends, or my partner wanted to order dessert after dinner and I felt like we couldn't. Those are life-giving moments. They don't need to happen 3 meals a day, 7 days a week, but they don't need to be skipped completely. So protein, carbs, and fat. If you work with me, we'll talk about these a lot. These are the 3 macronutrients that we all need every single day. And I grew up in the fat-free generation, which was awful and unnecessary and very tasteless. And right now we're in the carb-free craze, which is wild because from a biochemical level, we all actually need these macronutrients every day to function. They work perfectly together. So carbs are our short-term energy. Protein takes a little bit longer to break down, and fat takes the longest. So when you have a meal that has all three of these components, you're able to stay energetic and full longer and regulate your blood sugar. If you were to have a meal that was only carbs, your blood sugar would spike. You'd have a great, quick little energy source, but then it would crash. And that's what can lead to elevated blood sugar over time. So not saying don't have some pasta with your meal, just don't let it be the only thing. If you have pasta, add some chicken, add some veggies, make sure there's some fat in there to slow down the absorption of the carb. And all of this regulates blood sugar and keeps you full longer. So I always talk to folks about, well, that's a wonderful breakfast. You're having maybe a piece of toast with butter on it. So you have your carb and you have your fat, but there's no protein. So what can we do? Let's add some fried eggs on top of that. Let's maybe add some fiber with some fruit. When I talk to people about carbs, I really like for at least one of your carb source to be a source of fiber. So carbs is a huge food group. It includes everything from cookies and pasta to lentils and beans to broccoli and apples. So when I say fiber, that is your fruits, your vegetables, your whole grains, and your nuts and seeds. Really important and ideal for health if most meals have at least one of those sources in there. Fiber is important for everybody. This is not just people who struggle with regularity. It's great to help with regularity, but it also helps regulate blood sugar. It helps balance your gut microbiome. It lowers cholesterol. So fiber with every meal. So when I say protein, carbs, and fat, I usually say protein, fiber, and fat, just so people know we want to have fiber with every single meal. Okay, so the whole picture, as I said, obviously I feel like food is very important. Changes to your nutrition can really change your health picture. However, if you only change your nutrition, you're still not going to feel great. So I can do all the work in the world with folks around their nutrition, but if they're not moving their body, if they're sleeping poorly, if they're not protecting their mental health, they're still not going to feel great. And maybe this is something you've experienced before. You've tried to eat in a nourishing way and you still just feel run down or your blood work doesn't look great. And very often that is because we're not focusing on these other components of health. I believe that sleep and mental health are the foundational components of health. And so, very often by the end of an initial consult, I'm not even talking to people about food. I'm making a referral to a therapist because their mental health needs some protecting, or we're talking about strategies for sleep hygiene. Disrupted circadian rhythms, so disrupted sleep cycles, actually causes a stress response in your body that can lead to inflammation, that can lead to fat storage, and a cascade of negative things. So, disrupted sleep or poor mental health, both really systemically can affect everything way more negatively than not focusing on nutrition. And so I will talk about all of those things if we meet. Okay, so moving into the budget friendly tips for working professionals. These are sort of the high points that we're going to cover, and then we're going to jump into a cooking demo. Okay, so the power of your freezer. First and foremost, this is something that, for whatever reason, in this phase of life for me, I am leaning on very hard. And I would imagine that those of you who are getting home late or suddenly have a meeting that wasn't planned, or a work after work dinner, relying on your freezer rather than all fresh things in the refrigerator could be really, really helpful for you. Um, and you don't need to feel bad about it because the food is actually nutritionally equivalent, if not more fresh than buying it in the fresh section of the grocery store. And specifically, I mean the grocery store. So if you're going to the farmer's market and you're getting it the day after it was picked, that's about as fresh as we're going to get. But for those of us who are getting a lot of our produce from the grocery store, that maybe has been on a truck for a while and then sitting in the grocery store for a few weeks. Frozen stuff is frozen at the peak of freshness, right? So usually it is frozen right there at the field. And so it is retaining all of its nutrients. It's not starting to spoil at all. And it's going to last for a long time in your freezer versus something that sits in the refrigerator. So don't be afraid to buy frozen fruits and vegetables. I rely on them really hard. Obviously, this is less prep. So they've already been washed, they've already been chopped, they are ready to go. So those steps that can seem so overwhelming when you walk in at 6 o'clock and you don't know what you're going to do for dinner, it's ready to go. It's also very budget friendly. It's usually the price is usually, even though all that prep work has been done, I find the price is equivalent, if not less, than buying the fresh stuff out in the produce section. And anytime I have the dollar signs next to it, it's one of the sort of budget friendly tips, obviously. It also results in less food waste. I'm a bit of a tree hugger. I did a big food waste study when I was working at William Peace. And as I mentioned, when you have fresh stuff in the refrigerator, it's great. It's wonderful if you can plan for it and eat it. But, last minute you go out to dinner, last minute there's someone scheduling a work event, and you don't end up eating the fresh stuff. And it goes to waste, which is just very sad for lots of reasons. So it definitely results in less food waste because you can cook it tomorrow when you buy it, or you can cook it months from now. So a well-stocked freezer really can be your best friend. It's incredibly versatile too. So I can't take credit for this, but one of my clients actually taught me that you can roast frozen vegetables. So I don't know if, for those of you that don't know exactly what I mean by that, roasting vegetables is really my go-to way. My kids will eat most vegetables roasted versus like steamed or boiled. And I just mean you take a sheet pan, you put your veggies on there, olive oil, salt and pepper, whatever seasonings you might like. I use garlic powder a lot, lemon pepper. And you put it in the 425-degree oven for 15 to 20 minutes, depending on what the vegetable is. Now, I thought you really had to only use fresh for that. But I'd say probably about 6 months ago, a client mentioned that they roast frozen vegetables. And I've been doing that, and it actually works really well. You have to cook it a little bit longer because the water needs to cook out. And I want to get my veggies kind of crispy. So I'll do cauliflower this way, broccoli, carrots, okra works really well this way. So you want to just cook it a little bit longer. So 425 for more like 25 minutes. And it feels kind of strange the first time you do it when you're dumping the frozen veggies out on the sheet pan and dressing them with olive oil and seasonings, but it actually does work. You might just have to play around the time and temperature depending on your oven. But this has been a game changer for me. So I always can make some fresh roasted veggies if I want to, if I have a well-stocked freezer. You also can use them in sheet pan meals, which we'll talk about in a little while, soups and stews. So just having a well-stocked freezer is invaluable. These are some of my freezer staples. I feel like if I have these kind of 6 or 7 items in the freezer, then I can come up with 3 or 4 meals during the week cooked completely from just freezer items. Frozen meatballs are great. You can throw those in the crock pot in the morning with some sauce, or you can bake them in the evening. They're ready in 20 minutes. Cod is a great option. It thaws really quickly because it's fairly thin. It has a similar omega-3 content, which is an anti-inflammatory property to salmon, but it's cheaper than salmon, and it's also a lot more palatable for kids. It's just a very mild, flaky white fish. So very budget friendly. Everybody could stand to have more fish in your life. If you're not eating fish, if you like it, it's very, very good for you. And this is a more budget friendly option. The pre-cooked grilled chicken strips are great to just have on hand. Those can be thrown into a stir fry. They can be used for quesadillas or burritos, just really easy and good. Fiber. So we talked about fiber being your carb source, always wanting to have fiber with your meal. These are just some examples of things that I usually have in my freezer. So I mentioned all the vegetables I like to have on hand. Green beans, frozen green beans can also be roasted. Steamer bags of rice. So we eat a lot of brown rice, and I prefer to do that in the actual steamer. I'm going to show you that in a moment with the cooking demo. But if you haven't thought ahead to do that, because it does take about an hour, they do have little individual baggies of brown rice that you can just throw into the microwave. So great last minute option. Those are in the freezer section. Corn is a really easy one, high in fiber. So any of these, you could make a stir fry from this. You could make a Mexican night with this. So just keep a well-stocked freezer and you'll always have some easy go-tos. So meal planning, this is really my top budget tip, I have to say. This has been the thing that I can tell the biggest difference in my budget on the weeks where I make time to do this versus weeks that I don't. And I even say, put the time in your calendar. So if you had a doctor's appointment or you had a meeting with colleagues, you would put that in your calendar and you might even have a reminder. Meal planning for the sake of budget, for the sake of health, really needs to be like an appointment with yourself. Whether it's Saturday morning, Sunday afternoon, you really can do it in 15 or 20 minutes, but block that time in your phone and be intentional about it. Look out over the course of the week. How many nights do we have meetings or baseball practice or whatever after school? We need a quick meal on Tuesday night. On Thursday night, maybe I can make a new recipe. Look out over the course of the week and build your meal plan. And this includes breakfast and lunch as well. Think about just buying these items to have enough throughout the week so you're not running back to the grocery store several times, because that can really affect the budget as well. And then grocery shop based on that list. Again, I know this seems so simple, but it really is so much better than going in and doing a bunch of impulse buys. You stand in the middle of the grocery store and think, what should I cook this week? Oh, maybe this, and you end up with more than you need. And as I said, everything is very expensive right now, so nobody wants a bigger grocery bill than they need. So you specifically shop based on that meal plan that you made. I'm a big fan of curbside. When I was working at William Peace, I was doing Walmart curbside almost every week. I find I spend less money because I don't go into the store. So even if I go into the store and I shop based on the grocery list, there's always going to be, oh, I think my kids would like these new crackers or whatever, oh gosh, that squash looks so good. I'm going to buy some even though it's not on the plan for the week. And your bill ends up being a little bit higher. So if you don't go in, you don't end up spending as much money. A lot of people like to pick out their own produce. I understand this is not for everybody. And some places do have a little bit of a fee associated with it. But I personally spend less money if I don't go into the grocery store. Discount stores for big trips. So I'm sure you're all aware of places like Aldi and Lidl. They are cheaper. I mean, they just are. Their products are less expensive, and I'm always pretty excited when they hit the total button there. But they don't have everything that I need. And so I just didn't think it was appropriate to go on and on about the price virtues of these discount stores to you guys who are saying, I'm already busy, I'm already stressed. I don't want to have to go to 2 or 3 places, or I don't want to have to drive 5 miles farther to the Aldi down the road when I have a Publix or a Wegmans right close to me. I think you shop at the store that's closest to you. And if you're intentional about your meal planning, you don't have to worry about running all over town and going to 2 or 3 stores. Now, if you do have, family coming into town, or you're trying a bunch of new recipes and you have the time, the stuff is cheaper. That's just the truth. I paid $1.59 for a mango at Wegmans and 59 cents for it at Aldi. So seriously, a dollar difference for mangoes. And pretty much everything is like that. If you guys haven't been to one of these stores, I don't know how they do it, but they are cheaper. But again, they don't have a lot of household items. So you end up going to a bunch of different places, which is not a time saver. Also just wanted to make a plug for including a meatless night. Not trying to push vegetarian or veganism or anything like that. My family is just, we're big carnivores and I'm a big believer in protein, but it is a budget saver. Meat is typically the most expensive part of your meal. And there's a lot of ways to have a really delicious, fun meatless night. So if you're looking to cut the budget a little bit, consider having a meatless night. My family does it on Mondays. It's kind of a cliche, meatless Monday, but it just helps me remember, and it's an easy way to start the week because usually these meals are a little bit easier to put together. I think meat's also the more time consuming part of the meal. So if you want to kind of give yourself a night off, we recently have been alternating between a cheese and spinach frittata, which is kind of like a crustless quiche. And I'll do that with like a bowl of fruit and a piece of butter toast. Everybody's happy. It's delicious. Has plenty of protein and fiber and fat in it. Or we've been doing black bean and cheese quesadillas. Um, Everybody loves that too. Serve it with some salsa, maybe a little side salad with some lettuce and some corn on top, and you're good. So just consider that. That's just a way, an easy way to save a little bit in your budget. So semi-homemade, this is another just nice, easy weeknight hack. Not as budget friendly because sometimes this stuff is a little bit more expensive, but not always. But this is just keeping things on hand that are kind of taking steps out for you. So I grew up with a mother who cooked beautiful meals, excuse me, from scratch every night. And when I first had kids, I felt a lot of pressure to do that. But as life has gotten busier, I have realized, these things are at the grocery store for a reason. So don't feel bad about skipping a couple of steps by buying stuff that maybe one or two things have been done for you, like the pre-chopped veggies, whether that's in the fresh section where they're already rinsed and chopped for you, but they're in a bag and they're fresh, or the frozen. The bag salads are great. They already have the dressing and the toppings. I'm a huge fan of rotisserie chicken. I'm going to use it in the cooking demo. That's very versatile. You can make quesadillas, you can make soup, pre-cooked shrimp. So having the peeled and deveined shrimp in there ready to go, the steamer bags of either veggies or rice, and then of course the frozen items that I've already mentioned. So just giving yourself a little bit of grace and getting home, 6:30, and you already have the pre-cooked chicken in the fridge ready to go. So here's some examples of some of the semi-homemade meals that I lean on during the week. Again, you're still putting the meal together. It's still nutritious. It has all the meal components that I would want to see for my family, but I'm not making it completely from scratch. So again, when it's 6 or 6:30 or whatever time you're trying to pull all this out, it's not so many steps before you can get dinner on the table. So I'm not going to read all these, but hopefully there's at least one or two ideas in there that sound like something you could use. Okay, so moving on to sheet pan meals. This is another one that has been really helpful for my family. I am a big fan of roasting in general, but even better when you can put the entire meal on there. Only one thing to clean. So you guys are busy, you're tired at the end of the night. It's very easy. I'm going to show you a couple of examples. It's very easy to include fat, fiber, and protein. You can prep it the night before or that morning. So sometimes I see clients in the evenings. And so I'll just go ahead and put everything on the sheet pan, your protein, your starch, your veggie, season it up, cover it with foil, and just pop it in the refrigerator until you're ready to put it in the oven. And because this has gotten kind of trendy recently, there's a lot of good resources for this online. So I'll show you one of my favorites. But here's a couple that I have made recently. The one on the left is chicken thighs, or I actually think I used breast this time, but the recipe called for thighs. Gnocchi, which is a potatoes flour-based kind of pasta little ball. They're really good. I've only had them boiled before this recipe, and they were kind of mediocre to me. But roasting them, my kids said tasted like tater tots. So it's a huge compliment. And just put it on the pan with your veggies. So you got the Brussels sprouts and the cherry tomatoes right there, olive oil, salt and pepper, garlic. You finished it off with a squeeze of lemon. It was awesome, so easy. I've been coming back to this one a lot. Reach out to me if you want the recipe. And the one on the right is a whole chicken. So this one cooks a little bit longer. Whole chicken with white potatoes, green beans, and carrots. It has some apple cider vinegar on it, garlic. Again, pretty easy to put together. This one I definitely will put together in the morning and then you can just pop it into the oven when we're ready to cook. Real Food Dietitians, if you've never heard of them, they have a great database of recipes on their website. And so they have a whole section devoted to sheep pan meals. So you can see here, there's one with salmon. They have some with shrimp. This one has chicken nuggets. And even the one on the far right that has 15-minute or less meal prep time, which is great for you guys getting home late and trying to get dinner on the table. So lots of ideas and resources out there for making these really simple, everything's right there on the sheet pan, ready to go meals. And it's just for sure a favorite in my house. Okay, so I'm going to move into the cooking demo now, but I just kind of want to tee this up for us. If you've been to Kava or Happy Inhale or Diced, any of those type places, this is sort of the inspiration for it. My family loves Kava, but it's not super economical, but it's not terrible, but we can't eat there too terribly often. And also just because we like it, I thought, why not try to replicate it at home? So that's basically what we're doing. And so the basic concept is a green grain bowl, which is a very versatile thing to do. So I'm going to show you how you can do it 3 different ways. I'm only going to demo one of them, but I have a grocery list for you for all 3, just in case you want to buy the base ingredients and then kind of change it up over the course of the week. Very easy to include fat, fiber, and protein. Your fiber is going to be your base and a lot of your toppings. Your protein would be either your chicken, or this photo right here has the fried egg on top. It could be nuts and seeds. It could be tofu. And then the fat is usually like some cheese or the dressing or some nuts and seeds. Very easy to bulk prep. I'll kind of show you how I do that. And I do think it's very budget friendly because you can buy these ingredients and use them several times. So we'll just jump into that. But before I do, here's the grocery list for it, just in case you're interested. I did want to mention I'm going to use spinach today. You can use any leafy green vegetable that you like. Huge plug for leafy green vegetables. I know it's kind of a cliche for a dietitian to say that, but they are nutrition powerhouses. If you don't love them, I have a ton of ideas for sneaking them into food so you don't have to just sit down and eat a plain bowl of spinach, but they are really good for you. Tons of fiber, tons of phytonutrients. If you're making these green and grain bowls and taking them to work for lunch to eat a few hours later, kale could be a really good option because it's a little bit hardier and kind of stands up to the dressing. So just make sure you de-stem it, but really any leafy green. And then, so you have your base of the leafy green, put in some rice, and then your protein. And then these 3 different ways are ways that you could kind of diversify the toppings. So I'm going to demo the Greek bowl for y'all. There's an option here if you prefer maybe some more Asian flavors, doing it with oranges and cabbage and edamame. I've also listed a vegetarian option for each one of those for anyone out here who doesn't eat meat. So important still to make sure you're getting your protein. And then the Southwest bowl, I'm tell you, if I was doing this one, I'd also put some tortilla chips on top, give it a little bit of crunch. I would for sure make a green goddess dressing, which if I had time, I would demo that as well as the dressing I'm going to show you today. But a great way to get some anti-inflammatory avocado in you, and especially if you don't like avocado, is to puree avocado with Greek yogurt, lime juice, salt and pepper, maybe some garlic and chili powder, and make a little green goddess salad dressing. And that's really, really good on the Southwest bowl. And avocados are really good for you, very anti-inflammatory, lots of omega-3s. So here's sort of the grocery list if you wanted to try the variety of bowls. But I am going to stop sharing my screen and then tilt the camera down and show you guys how I would put one of these together. So let me just do that real fast. Okay. And I apologize that I'm not savvy enough to have a camera where you can see my face and the cooking demo area. I think my intern was able to pull that off last year, but my workspace is not quite accommodate that. So hopefully you can kind of see what I'm working with here. I did want to make a quick plug for rice steamers, just in case you don't have one. If you are somebody who likes brown rice, lentils, oatmeal, barley, a rice steamer is a great tool to have. I would never tell my husband this, but I don't actually like this one as much as my old one. He gave me this one for Christmas 2 years ago because my old one died. If I were y'all, if you don't have one, get one that has a delay timer. This one only has cook and keep warm. My old one had I could say, wait and come on 6 hours from now. So you guys could set the rice timer when you leave for work in the morning, and you have hot, fluffy rice when you walk in the door for dinner. It's kind of like using a crock pot, only it sits there off all day, and then it just comes on a couple hours before you get home and makes the rice. These things make perfect rice. Once you've had one, you really can't go back to regular rice cooked on the stovetop. And all grains, they really are amazing. But for green and grain bowls, I like to start out with the green as your base. So I'm going to use baby spinach. And one little cooking home hack that I wanted to show you, in case you don't already do this, is you see I have a paper towel in here. If you guys buy these larger containers of spinach and you aren't able to get through them quickly, go ahead and put paper towel in there to absorb the water. You will extend the life of the spinach greatly. So that's a budget friendly tip as well. So I like to put a base of spinach down in the bottom of the bowl. And spinach is one of those ones that has so much air in it that it actually goes down quite a bit once you chop it up. I like to use my scissors, just go ahead and put it in the bowl and chop it up with the scissors rather than having to put it on the cutting board. And quick plug for using scissors that come apart versus the ones that don't. If they come apart at the joint, they go in the dishwasher better, and they get cleaner. So especially if you're cutting raw meat with your scissors, this is really important to have ones that come apart. They just get cleaner, and that's a bit more sanitary. So I'll start out just kind of chopping up the spinach like this. This should, spinach has stems. Most of the green leafies have stems. It just makes it a little bit easier to eat. And as you can see, it's going down a lot. So you can actually do a bigger handful of spinach if you would like. So there's your base. And then I'm just going to put a few spoonfuls of rice on top. And if any part of this doesn't sound good, obviously you can leave it out. You want to make sure that there's some fiber source and some protein source, but some people are a little hinky about adding warm rice to spinach. Of course, you can pre-make your rice and have it cold if you would prefer. I like it. I prefer it warm, so I made the rice this morning. But if you want to just do the greens, or you just want to do the grain and then add other veggies on top, that's an option as well. But I'll just do a couple of spoonfuls of rice. Again, it's like so delicious and cooked so perfectly in these steamers. I really can't overstate that. So just a couple of spoonfuls of rice. And then for mine, I used a rotisserie chicken. You really could use the pre-grilled strips in your freezer, or you could have bulk prepped, grilled several pieces of chicken over the weekend. This was a rotisserie chicken that I got yesterday. My husband is the master at cleaning a chicken. I would have gotten like 2 cups less than he can get. I don't know what, this is like a skill that he has. So he pulled it off for me this morning and got all his chicken. This would make a beautiful amount of chicken salad. This would be a great amount to have in a soup. But I'm just going to put a little bit on top of my green and grain bowl. I like to tell people to aim for about a hand-sized portion of protein at lunch and dinner. Gram-wise, I'm trying for people to get about 20 to 30 grams of protein per meal in order to feel full and regulate your blood sugar over the course of the day. Your hand is the perfect measuring tool for your size body. So aiming for about the size of your hand amount of protein, thickness and size, is a good rule of thumb. Steak can be a little bit smaller because they're usually thicker and they're more nutrient dense. So it can be more like your palm, but for like fish and chicken, look for about the size of your hand. Okay, so we have our greens, we have our rice on top, and we have the chicken on top of that. So we have some fiber, we have some protein. I'm going to add a bit more fiber, and then I'm going to add my fat. So I have these beautiful cherry tomatoes here. These are bite-sized to me, and just from a prep and time standpoint, I'm just going to go ahead and put them right on here. You guys are tired at the end of the day, don't want to have to do any chopping, but obviously if you wanted to, you can make those a little bit smaller. I'm also going to add some chickpeas, and this is the vegetarian option as well. So chickpeas are little nutrition powerhouses as well. This is what hummus is made out of. They're also called garbanzo beans. They are full of protein and fiber. So beans, nuts, and seeds, or the whole group of food known as legumes, are wonderful little nutrition powerhouses because they actually have fat, fiber, protein all in one food. So I talk about try to get fat, fiber, and protein in your meals. It doesn't have to be three different food groups. So if you want a snack of fat, fiber, protein, nuts and seeds are a great way to do that. But I'm just going to put a little bit of the chickpeas on top for some added fiber, some added protein, and also just because I love them. And then I have some feta cheese here. So this is now getting me some more fat. This one would be not necessarily budget friendly, but because feta is is such a strong flavor, then you don't have to use quite so much. But if you wanted to go with a more budget friendly cheese or skip the cheese completely, you could do that as well. But I'm a big fan of feta, and so I'll usually put a little bit of that. And especially if you're doing this for dinner, you really want to have a good amount of fat on there because you won't be eating again for 10 to 12 hours. So really important that you have your fat source at dinner. So I have my beautiful bowl going here. I just wanted to demo real quickly a sauce that I would put on top. Again, this part might not be as time friendly. So you could use your favorite dressing, whatever that might be. If you have been somewhere like Cabo, you're probably accustomed to the fact that they'll take big dollops of like hummus and things like that and put on the top. So you could also just put a dollop of hummus on the top, drizzle some olive oil and salt and pepper, and that would be a great dressing as well. But I just wanted to show you the dressing that pretty much is those same ingredients, just mixed together with a little bit of olive oil. I also want to make a plug for these little tiny colanders. If you don't have some of these, if you're always getting your big colander out, even when you're just doing something small like a can of beans, these things are great. I have several. They can go in the dishwasher. But I'm just going to do a quick dressing here with hummus, lemons, and olive oil, and just make a creamy dressing for us to use on top of this green and grain bowl. And I prefer fresh lemon juice. Obviously, canned or jarred that you keep it in the refrigerator ready to go is fine as well. I do think the flavor's a little bit better here. I'm going to use my lemon squeezing tool. I just wanted to show y'all. I'm not going to really be measuring it today, but if you do cook with fresh lemon juice, these ones that have the tablespoons down the side are so nice rather than just trying to guess or squeeze your lemon into a tablespoon. So if a recipe calls for a specific amount of lemon juice, having this little tool right here is really nice. But I'm just kind of eyeballing this today. And hummus already has a little bit of a lemon flavor, but I'm a big fan of lemon and I feel like it brings out the flavors of the Greek flavor profile really well. So I'm just going to add a little bit more. I've got my measuring cup and my whisk over here, and just going to do a little bit of lemon juice, add a little bit of olive oil. If you're not already prioritizing olive oil, this is another place to prioritize your budget. It is more expensive than other oils, but that's because it is made in a much more pure process. It has not been refined. A lot of oils are highly inflammatory, and so they actually can cause or exacerbate health issues, whereas olive oil is very anti-inflammatory and really, really good for you. So if you can, in your budget, prioritize using olive oil, it is much better for you. So for roasting, for cooking, it really is the way to go. And then I'm just going to add a little dollop of hummus in here as kind of an emulsifier, and also because I really like it. And other than salt and pepper, that's really it. Those are the only ingredients. And you can make this, it will keep for a couple days in the refrigerator. You might have to re-whisk it when you get it out, but this is a great option for a homemade salad dressing. Just a little bit of salt and pepper. You could add some garlic in here too if you're a big fan of garlic, and just kind of whisk it together. And like I said, it's kind of like mustard is also a great option here. So all these same ingredients, but add some mustard as an emulsifier. It just makes a nice creamy dressing. Can go on salads. It can be a dip. It can be drizzled over grilled chicken. But I'm just going to take my lovely green and grain bowl here and drizzle a little bit over the top. And the only other thing I'm going to add, and I don't think I had this on the grocery list, I'm a huge fan of these pumpkin seeds right here. So if you've seen pumpkin seeds around the grocery store and wondered about them, these are another great fat, fiber, protein, all in one little tiny piece of food option for you. They're great as a snack, but they're also wonderful to add a little bit of crunch to things like salads. I put them on my yogurt every morning. You can put it on top of oatmeal. These are the salted ones. You can also get unsalted. But I just like thinking of ways to add a little bit more protein and flavor and a little bit more crunch. Um, so here's my green and grain bowl. You can hardly see the greens anymore. They're under there. But I'm actually going to eat this in a little while for a late lunch because I had a snack right before I got on with you guys. I haven't had lunch yet. So I think that's it for me. I hope that cooking demo was helpful. I'll share screen again with my contact information, and I'm happy to take questions now.
Thank you so much, Wendy. We actually have quite a few questions for you that have come in.
Great.
So we'll get started right away. Who should be concerned about gluten? Gluten-free diets have been thought to be for those that are allergic or sensitive to wheat. However, some have heard that wheat isn't good for anyone due to how it affects our gut.
Sure, yeah. So leaky gut is another one of those kind of somewhat trendy terms that's been going around for a few years. It is very much a thing. It is very much a concern for folks that might have sensitivity to wheat. That is something that you can be tested for, as you mentioned. So celiac disease means that you have actual intolerance to wheat. That means that gluten, which is in wheat, can wear down your stomach lining and then eventually cause what's in your stomach to leak into your bloodstream. And nobody wants that. Um, I don't think that there's any specific research around everyone needing to avoid gluten. There's really probably research on both sides of that, but to my knowledge, unless you test positive for celiac disease or you just happen to have a wheat sensitivity, there's no reason to go completely on a gluten-free diet. Now, there are some people, myself included, that gluten can cause a bit of bloating. So not a full diagnosis of an allergy or even a sensitivity, but it does cause some stomach distress. And so limiting or avoiding it can be useful for those people as well.
Thank you. A question, when it comes to disease prevention, is it best to reduce or eliminate meat and animal products from your diet?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question as well. It really is not necessary to completely go on a plant-based diet in order to avoid disease. I believe that animal protein has a really positive role in our diets for those who want to. Now, I completely support my clients that are vegan, vegetarian. It can be a very healthy way to be. I do find it is hard to meet the protein totals that we want to get throughout the day. You have to be very, very intentional, and that sometimes that ends up having to come from more processed food if you're trying to be vegan, vegetarian, and get enough protein. But it is extraordinarily healthy to eat a more plant forward diet. So continuing to eat animal protein can be a very healthy part of your diet. But as I said before, with pairing fat, fiber, and protein together, you want to have your animal protein with a bunch of plants as well. The problem usually occurs when people are outsizing the portions of protein on their plate, and that's the dominant part of the meal, and they're not having enough fiber, and that's when it can start to have cause problems. But I think that the animal protein can be a very healthy part of a diet. There's a lot of nutrients in animal protein that are hard to get in a completely plant-based diet, so you do have to be very intentional there. So I think chronic diseases can be avoided and managed while still including animal protein in your diet if you would like to.
That's great. Um, so a question came in that their doctor told them to stay away from tilapia, but did not explain why. Do you know which fish to choose? Um, salmon is known to be the healthiest, and wild caught is better than farm raised. But what are your thoughts, Wendy?
Yeah, so this is a big budget consideration. I would not bring it up unless I was asked about it. So I appreciate the question. For me personally, with my family, we do prioritize wild caught fish. I have a good friend who's actually a fisherman, and he feels the same way about tilapia. Unfortunately, it's sad because tilapia is very readily available and fairly accessible from a budget standpoint in the grocery store, but unfortunately, it is a very heavily farmed fish, and there's gradients of farming. So don't shy away from something that says it's farm raised just because it says it's farm raised. If you're able to ask questions, like for example, at Whole Foods, they have sort of a gradient level of this is farm raised, meaning it's in a teeny tiny tank and it doesn't get to swim much during the day versus farm raised, there's actually salmon farms in the ocean. And so this just means there's a net around big sections of the ocean. So the salmon are still eating their natural diet that they would eat out in the wild. They're still swimming a lot during the day. So some farm raised, if you're able to ask and get kind of information from your fishmonger or the fish market, might actually be fine. But if you're just buying prepackaged fish, going with wild caught is going to be safer. So in the specific example of salmon, what I was told by my friend or with tilapia, my friend that's the fisherman said that most tilapia is farm raised and it's farm raised in the smaller tanks, which means that they're very heavily exposed to their own waste. And that causes issues. So the quality of meat that you're getting is not the highest quality meat. So I would guess that that's probably why your doctor said that. Um, and so if you're at the grocery store in the frozen section, again, a budget consideration because it's generally a little bit more expensive. But I'll say for me personally, for my family, I do prioritize the wild caught. Like anything else, kind of like organic, buying organic or not, there's research on both sides. There are people who are going to say that it's a bunch of malarkey to worry about wild caught. So it's a very personal preference. But for me personally, I do prefer and try to buy wild caught when I can find it and budget for it.
Another question, how do you feel about sealing your meats and vegetables and then freezing?
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. When I'm on my A game, I will go to Costco and get a bunch of stuff and do that very thing. Break it into smaller groups, put it in the vacuum sealer. My husband actually hunts, so we have a lot of vacuum sealing supplies for his venison. And we'll make little individual sets of things. I mean, not only can you do stuff like that raw, but once you cook it, you can go ahead and have like a grilled pork tenderloin. You go grill two of them on the weekend, freeze one of them. So yeah, the only thing that changes is the taste quality is not quite the same. So if I were to sometimes I'll get my husband to grill a bunch on the weekends and we'll freeze half of it. And you can tell a slight difference between the one that comes right off the grill and you get to eat it versus the one you freeze and eat a couple weeks later. But other than that, the food quality, the nutritional quality is not compromised. So yeah, I'm a big fan of that. And that's great for planning and for budgeting and stuff.
In the conversation about frozen meats, what brand of meatballs do you buy? Because some are high in sodium.
Yeah, they definitely are. Um, I'm trying to think. There's a grass-fed brand that you can get at Walmart. I want to say Beefnik or Beatnik or something like that. I generally just look for ones that do have the lower sodium grass-fed if possible, but also realizing that every once in a while, if that was in your meal plan and you can't find the grass-fed kind or you have one that's higher sodium, every once in a while doing that to get yourself through the week is not the end of the world.
What about a good low sodium option for cheese instead of feta?
Oh, that's a good question. They had a low sodium option at the grocery store today, and I had never seen that before with the feta. I'm not really sure about that. I feel like most cheese is pretty salty. Maybe mozzarella might be a little bit lower because that is the part skim. I think they're just a little bit more cognizant, but I don't really have a great answer for that one. I apologize.
Um, Another question, smoothie suggestions for on-the-go breakfasts.
Yeah, smoothies are great. So, juicing, unfortunately, is pulling a bunch of the fiber out, but smoothies, you're still retaining all of the nutrients. So, if you're kind of going back and forth between those two, smoothies, I'm a bigger fan of those. The great thing about smoothies, like I was talking about, if you don't like spinach, that's one of those places that I tell people to kind of sneak spinach in, whether it's for yourself or for your kids. Um, and so my go-to with spinach, and this is again keeping the well-stocked freezer, is just having your favorite berry. So one issue that some people can have with smoothies is they can get a little bit high in sugar, and that's the first thing that hits your stomach in the morning that can cause a blood sugar spike. Berries are kind of the best bang for your buck fruit because they are high in antioxidants, fiber, things like that, but then also lowest in sugar. So I like to keep blackberries, blueberries, strawberries in the freezer. Mix that with some fresh spinach. So that same kind of spinach that I use in the cooking demo, putting a couple handfuls of that in there. And then make sure you have a protein and fat source. So either full fat, plain Greek yogurt, or you can also put avocados in smoothie. It makes them really creamy. You'll never know it's there. They actually have frozen avocado chunks at the grocery store. So again, this is a budget consideration because avocados aren't cheap, but the fresh ones are much more expensive. So you can get a bag of frozen avocado chunks, easy way to get some anti-inflammatory food. And there's your fat source in your smoothie. Now, you still would need some protein if it's going to be kind of a meal replacement, if this is going to be your breakfast. And so, if you're not using the Greek yogurt, so the Greek yogurt could be your fat and protein source. And I do mean full fat yogurt. I really feel very strongly about this. If you're eating yogurt, it needs to have some fat in it. Non-fat yogurt really has had most of the goodness stripped out of it, and it's not going to keep you full for very long. But full fat yogurt, Greek yogurt has some higher protein. But if you're not putting that in there, then you can put some protein powder in there to make sure it's a complete meal. So again, your fat, fiber, and your protein. So berries, spinach, and then either Greek yogurt, some kind of protein powder, avocado, and then I'll put just some like almond milk or something like that in there. You can also do a splash of orange juice. Obviously, you need some kind of liquid, but that's sort of my go-to recipe. Of course, there's a ton of different ways to get creative with that.
Wendy, what are your thoughts on the trend for intermittent fasting? Do you believe this and have you ever tried it?
So if someone comes to me and they are doing intermittent fasting and they feel like it's working really well for them, I don't try to stop them from doing it. But it is not something that I personally promote. My research is very heavily into blood sugar regulation, hormone regulation. I have a lot of clients that are perimenopausal, menopausal. When you're trying to regulate your hormones, you need to feed your body. And we fast every night. We all are fasting every single night. So you eat dinner around 7 o'clock. You're not eating breakfast again until 7, 8 the next morning. So you already are going 12 hours without eating. Biologically, my research shows that that's what the body was designed to do and can handle. Your blood sugar is not going to plummet too ridiculously low. You're not going to put strain on your bodily systems. Your hormones aren't going to fluctuate. After that point, I really feel that we need to eat within an hour or two of waking up a complex carbohydrate, some protein, and get your system going. This regulates your hunger and satiety hormones. It regulates your blood sugar. I'm aware that there's plenty of research out there to say intermittent fasting could help me bring my A1C down and relieve my diabetes. I know there's research on both sides. I'm a big fan of breakfast. I think people who we've already, as I said, fasted all night need to wake up and eat something. So again, I'll help people work through that if they want to continue to do IF, but it's not something that I personally promote. I've never tried it myself. I'm really hungry when I wake up in the morning. I really like breakfast. I do think it's one of the most important meals of the day.
We are down to our last minute, and I did want to address a couple of questions that were in here altogether. One question, Wendy, everyone would really like that green goddess salad dressing that you mentioned. So, and there's some
Yay.
requests for the chicken and gnocchi recipe.
Okay.
So we will be putting this recording in addition to Wendy's slides on the CRC website. So I'm going to ask Wendy to send us those specific recipes and we'll include those on the page that has this recording and all of her slides.
Yeah, perfect.
And that'll be available next week. So you should be able to see this again. There were some questions regarding connecting with a nutritionist in this area. I know that Wendy does have some CRC folks who are clients and I believe is still accepting additional clients. And so
Definitely.
please take down her email. And I apologize that we didn't get through every single question. We had a lot of them today. That's why we keep bringing Wendy back because you are just so fabulous and everyone loves to hear from you. So if you have questions that did not get answered today, I'm going to direct everybody to Wendy to shoot her an email if you have a specific question that you'd like to address from today.